The front 180 is a lot harder than it looks on a fingerboard. It can be really awkward to get used to turning your fingers in the air and landing backwards while keeping both fingers on the board the entire time. So in this video, I'm going to explain everything you need to know to do a front 180. Step number 1, where to put your fingers. You want to put your index finger in the middle of the board and your middle finger on the tail of the board. One trick that really helped me learn how to front 180 was to turn my fingers slightly towards me. This will make it a lot easier to do the 180 rotation because we're already turning our hand in that direction. Step number 2, how to power slide. One of the trickiest parts of the front 180 is getting used to turning your hand and your wrist. When you're first learning this trick, it can be really awkward to turn your wrist and land on the board with your palm facing away from you. A great way to practice turning frontside is by doing a power slide along the ground. A frontside power slide is when you do a frontside 180 and keep all 4 wheels on the ground. The key to this trick is to swing your middle finger in front of your index finger almost as if you're crossing your fingers. Your index finger stays in the exact same place the entire time and will rotate along with your wrist while your middle finger is doing all of the work of pushing the board along the ground to complete the 180 rotation. If you're struggling with this step, it can help to try putting your board out in front of you so that your tail is pointing towards you and that you're riding away from your body. This way you don't have to turn your wrist as much. It's good to start slow with this trick as you get used to turning your wrist, but as you get more comfortable, you can speed up the 180 and even try putting your middle finger on the tail and pressing down on the tail so that you're sliding on just your back wheels. Step number 3, how to pivot. A pivot is when you land on 2 wheels and do a 180. When you're first learning to do a front 180, it can be difficult to get the full rotation, so a lot of people will land on their front wheels and pivot the rest of the 180. To do a pivot, place your middle finger on the tail of the board and your index finger on the nose of the board. Then press down on the tail with your middle finger like you're doing a manual. Next, you want to do a seesaw motion so that you're pressing down on the nose of the board with your index finger. Then we want to use that same technique that we learned with the power slide where we swing our middle finger in front of our index finger while balancing on our front wheels. It's good to start slow with this step as well, but over time you can speed up the pivot to make it look more fluid. Step number 4, popping the board. A front 180 is basically an ollie where you turn your fingers in the air and land backwards, so if you haven't already, definitely check out my ollie tutorial so you can master the ollie first. But turning your wrist and keeping your fingers on the board the entire time is a lot easier said than done, even if you can ollie. A good way to ease your way into a proper front 180 is going back to putting your board out in front of you so that your tail is pointing towards you and you're riding away from your body. Once you get more comfortable with doing 180s from this position, you can gradually start to turn your wrist more and more back towards your regular ollie position. We can also use the pivot trick that we learned in the last step to ollie 90 degrees and then land on our front wheels and pivot the last 90 degrees. Over time, you can start turning your wrist more and more when you ollie so that you don't have to rely on the pivot to complete the full rotation. One thing to keep in mind is you don't have to completely turn your hand so your palm is facing away from you. What a lot of people do to make the rotation easier and make the landing look more stylish is bend their index finger and keep their middle finger straight. That way your index finger and your middle finger are still landing in the same position on the board, but you can keep your hand and wrist turned at a 90-degree angle rather than twisting them the full 180 degrees. Another issue I see a lot of people run into is when they go to front 180, they accidentally flip the board like a frontside flip. To prevent this from happening, you can put your index finger on the edge of the board that's furthest away from you. This is going to make it way harder to flip the board and give you more control. This is also where the finger positioning of turning your fingers slightly towards you will help out as well. You really want to focus on sliding both of your fingers up the board and keeping both of your fingers on the board the entire time. The key to this trick is to lead the rotation with your index finger to make sure the board follows your fingers in the air. As long as your front truck is turning and doing the full 180, the rest of your board will follow. This is why it's important to learn how to pivot so you can really focus on turning your front truck when you ollie. Front 180s look really simple, but they're one of the most difficult tricks in fingerboarding. Once you can get a solid front 180 though, it opens up the door to more complicated tricks like frontside flips, frontside big spins, and big spin heels. And if you want to learn some other easy tricks, check out my other tutorials like my 1-hour video where I explain every basic fingerboarding trick in detail. Once you master all of those tricks, you'll be looking like a fingerboard pro in no time. And let me know if there's any other tricks you guys would like me to teach you in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching and make sure to subscribe for more tutorials like this.